The station floated in the darkness of space, its metal body circling a dying star. Inside, thousands of beings from across the galaxy worked in silence. This was the Eternal Library, the greatest collection of knowledge in known space. Every species that joined the Galactic Confederacy sent their history here. Every story, every war, every achievement was recorded and stored. Dr. Jinwoo walked through the long corridors with slow, tired steps. He was 52 years old, and his hair had turned gray from too many late nights reading ancient records. He was human. One of only 3 humans allowed to work in this sacred place. The other scholars respected him, but they also kept their distance. Humans were new to the galaxy. Strange, unpredictable. Jinwoo entered the main archive chamber. The room was massive, with walls that curved up into a dome high above. Holographic displays floated in the air, showing data from 1,000 different worlds. At the center stood Magistrate Velthar, waiting for him. Velthar was not human. His body looked like a giant spider made of purple crystal. 8 eyes dotted his face, each one watching Jinwoo approach. His legs clicked against the metal floor as he turned. "Dr. Jinwoo," Velthar said. His voice came from a translator device on his chest. "The Council has made their decision. We will begin the full review of human history tomorrow." Jinwoo nodded slowly. He had known this day would come. Humans had joined the Confederacy 200 years ago. Since then, they had been probationary members. Limited rights. Watched carefully. Now the Council wanted to properly classify humanity's development. They wanted to know what kind of species humans really were. "I understand," Jinwoo said quietly. "You seem troubled," Velthar observed. His 8 eyes blinked in sequence. "This is a great honor. Most species celebrate when their history is officially recognized." "Ope." Jinwoo said nothing. He had read human history. All of it. The parts that made people proud and the parts that made them weep. He knew what the galactic scholars would see. He knew how they would react. The door slid open behind them. A young woman rushed in, her face bright with excitement. Jin was 24 years old, fresh from university, full of hope. She was Jinwoo's intern, assigned to help him with research. "Dr. Jinwoo, I heard the news." She practically bounced on her feet. "They're finally going to classify us. This is amazing. We can show them everything humanity has accomplished." Jinwoo looked at his young student. He remembered being that hopeful once, before he spent years studying what humans had done to each other throughout history. "Yes," he said simply. "We will show them everything." Over the next week, Jinwoo and Jin prepared the presentation. They gathered data files, organized timelines, and created holographic displays. The committee that would review human history consisted of 12 scholars from different species. Jinwoo met them one by one. There was Nimara, a windborn. Her species lived as gas clouds, floating through the skies of their peaceful world. She had chosen to compress herself into a beautiful crystalline shell so she could interact with solid beings. She spoke in musical chimes that the translator turned into words. There were 3 lumens, beings made of living light that grew like crystals. They had never known war on their world. Resources were abundant. They simply grew and learned and shared knowledge. 2 tidecallers attended, aquatic beings from a world covered entirely in warm, calm oceans. They floated in spheres of water, their tentacles moving in gentle patterns. Their history was one of cooperation and shared resources. The others came from similarly peaceful worlds. Garden planets, where food grew easily, where the weather was stable, where cooperation had always been more successful than conflict. Velthar led the committee. He believed deeply that all species were fundamentally the same. Different bodies, yes, but the same path of development, the same progression, from primitive to advanced, the same journey toward peace and cooperation. The presentation began on a morning cycle. The committee gathered in the dome chamber. Jinwoo stood at the center. surrounded by floating holographic displays. "We begin with human prehistory," Jinwoo said. His voice was steady and professional. 3 million years ago, on a planet called Earth, the displays showed early humans. Walking upright, using simple stone tools, discovering fire. The committee watched with interest. This was familiar. Standard development for a Class 5 species. Hyjin stood to the side, proud and smiling. She had helped prepare this section. It showed humanity's cleverness, their innovation, their determination. The presentation moved forward. Agriculture. The first cities. Writing systems. Mathematics. The scholars nodded approvingly. One of the lumens created a soft glow. Their version of a smile. Then Jinwoo reached the section on early civilizations. Sumer. Egypt. The Indus Valley. Great achievements in architecture and organization. But also the first recorded wars. The first armies. The first conquests. Nimara chimed a question. Why did they fight? The records show abundant river valleys. Enough resources for all. Jinwoo pulled up Earth's environmental data. The river valleys were islands of fertility in harsh deserts. The climate was unstable. Droughts could last for generations. Floods could destroy everything. Resources were never truly abundant. One of the tide callers rippled its water sphere in confusion. But surely cooperation would be more efficient? Sharing resources across regions? Yes, Jinwoo agreed. But human tribes were separated by hostile terrain. Deserts. Mountains. Vast oceans they could not yet cross. They developed in isolation. Each group competed for limited resources in their own region. The presentation continued. Greece and Rome. China's warring states. The Mongol expansion. With each new section, the committee grew more uncomfortable. The timeline was filled with battles, conquests, and empires built on the backs of defeated enemies. Velthar stopped the presentation. Dr. Jinwoo, I notice many data anomalies in your timeline. Conflict markers appear with unusual frequency. Are you certain these records are accurate? Jinwoo met his eight-eyed gaze. The records are accurate, Magistrate. Human history contains considerable conflict. Mark. But this is... Velthar gestured at the timeline with one crystalline leg. This is constant. Continuous. Surely this cannot be normal development. Heijin stepped forward, her earlier enthusiasm dimming. It's our history, Magistrate. We don't deny it. But we also achieved great things between the conflicts. Art, philosophy, literature, music, Nimara chimed softly. Your achievements are noted, young scholar. But we must ask, why so much violence? Most species have conflicts in their early development. But not this many. Not this intense. Not this organized. Jinwoo took a breath. Earth was not a kind world, honored scholars. Perhaps we should examine the environmental context before we continue with the historical timeline. Velthar clicked his mandibles together, thinking, very well. We will pause here. Tomorrow, bring your environmental data. We must understand the world that shaped your species. The committee filed out slowly, talking among themselves in their various languages. Jinwoo could hear the concern in their voices, the confusion. They had studied hundreds of species. None had histories quite like humanity's. When the chamber was empty except for Jinwoo and Heijin, the young woman turned to her mentor. They're judging us, she said quietly. I can see it in their eyes. They think we're barbaric. Jinwoo placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. They don't understand yet. Tomorrow, we help them understand. We show them Earth. That night, Jinwoo sat alone in his quarters, looking at the data he would present the next day. Climate records, extinction events, ice ages, volcanic eruptions, tectonic shifts, Earth's history of violence toward its own children. He thought about Velthar's question. Are these records accurate? Yes, Jinwoo thought. Every word is true. Every battle happened. Every war was fought. Every drop of blood was real. But the scholars didn't know the full truth yet. They didn't know about the planet that had tried to kill humanity for 200,000 years. They didn't know about the world that had taught humans to fight or die. Tomorrow they would learn. Tomorrow they would see Earth for what it truly was. Not a garden where life flourished easily, but a forge where survival demanded strength, cunning, and an iron will to refuse extinction. Jinwoo closed his eyes. He hoped the committee would understand. He hoped they would see that humanity's violence was not born from cruelty or evil, but from the desperate need to survive on a world that offered no mercy. But hope, Jinwoo knew from human history, was never enough. Tomorrow would reveal whether understanding was possible, or whether humanity would be judged solely by its scars. The committee gathered again the next morning. Jinwoo noticed that fewer scholars smiled at him today. Velthar's 8 eyes watched him carefully as he entered the chamber. Nimara's crystalline shell flickered with uncertain colors. Jinwoo activated the environmental displays. A blue and green planet appeared in the center of the room, rotating slowly. Earth. Beautiful from space. Deadly on the surface. This is Earth. Jinwoo began. The home world of humanity. Before we continue with history, you must understand the world that shaped us. He pulled up the first data set. Earth's axis is tilted 23.5 degrees. This creates extreme seasonal variations. Temperatures can swing by 60 degrees or more between summer and winter in many regions. One of the lumens pulsed with confusion. Why would life evolve on such an unstable world? Life did not choose Earth, Jinwoo said quietly. Life survived Earth. He showed them more data. Ice ages that came and went. Massive glaciers that covered entire continents. Periods of extreme heat that turned fertile land into desert. The climate swung between extremes with brutal regularity. Every 100,000 years, on average, Earth entered an ice age. Humans evolved during a period of intense climate instability. The world our ancestors knew changed constantly. Forests became grasslands. Lakes became deserts. Safe havens became death zones. Velthar leaned forward. Surely some regions remained stable? Safe zones where early humans could thrive? End quote. Jinwoo shook his head. Earth has massive tectonic plates that constantly move. This causes earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. Safe zones today might be destroyed tomorrow. The planet itself was active, violent, unpredictable. He showed them the data on Earth's natural disasters, hurricanes, tornadoes, tsunamis, floods, droughts. The list went on and on. Heejin added her voice, trying to help them understand. Earth also has a very large moon. It creates powerful tides. Coastal areas flood regularly. Early humans had to learn the patterns, or they would be swept away. The tide callers rippled in their water spheres. One spoke in bubbling tones. Our world has gentle tides. They follow simple patterns, predictable, safe. This sounds chaotic. It was, Jinwoo confirmed. But we continue. Let me show you Earth's resources. A new display appeared. A breakdown of Earth's composition. The committee studied it, in growing disbelief. 70% of your planet is covered in water, Nimara chimed. Surely that provided abundant resources? 97% of that water is salt water, Jinwoo explained. Undrinkable. Useless for agriculture. Humans could only use the 3% that was fresh water, and much of that was locked in ice or deep underground. He continued the devastating presentation. Earth's thin atmosphere offered little protection from solar radiation. Dangerous animals evolved alongside humans, predators with claws and teeth that saw early humans as prey. Diseases spread through populations with terrifying efficiency. Every day, Jinwoo said softly. Early humans woke up on a world trying to kill them. The weather, the predators, the diseases. the very ground beneath their feet. Survival was never guaranteed. It was earned. Day by day. Generation by generation. The chamber fell silent. The scholars processed this information slowly. Their own worlds had been so different. Stable, abundant, kind. Velthar finally spoke. I begin to understand the context, but this was ancient history. Surely as humans advanced, as they developed technology, the violence decreased? Jin Wu wished he could say yes. Instead, he pulled up the next section of human history. Shall we continue with the timeline? The presentation resumed. Medieval period. The Crusades. Religious wars. Conquest of empires. The committee watched as human civilizations rose and fell, each one built on the ashes of the last. Then Jin Wu reached a point where he needed help. He pressed a button on his console. The door opened. An old man walked in, leaning on a cane. His face was weathered and hard. Scars marked his arms. This was Dr. Tae Sung, 67 years old, a military historian who had fought in real wars. This is Dr. Tae Sung, Jin Wu introduced him. He will help explain the period from the Renaissance through the modern era. Tae Sung limped to the center of the chamber. He did not smile. He did not soften his words. You want to know why humans fought? He asked the committee. I'll tell you. Because we had to. He pulled up maps of Earth. Look at this. Dozens of separate civilizations, hundreds of different groups, all competing for the same limited resources on a hostile planet. You cannot understand human history without understanding scarcity. The presentation moved to the colonial period. European nations spreading across the globe. The slave trade. The conquest of indigenous peoples. The committee members shifted uncomfortably. Nimara's shell flickered red with distress. This is barbaric. Why did your species not develop cooperative systems? Why conquest instead of trade? Taesung's voice was cold. Because cooperation requires trust. And trust is a luxury species develop on kind worlds. Earth taught us that resources were limited, that other groups would take what they could. That strength determined survival. But this is wrong, one of the lumens protested. Morally wrong. Yes, Taesung agreed bluntly. It was wrong. Humans did terrible things to each other. We know this. We teach this. We remember this. But you asked why it happened. I'm telling you why. Heijin watched her people's history unfold through alien eyes. She saw the shock on their faces, the horror, the judgment. She wanted to defend humanity, but the facts spoke for themselves. The presentation continued. The Industrial Revolution, technological advancement, and then the World Wars. When the display showed the trenches of World War I, Nimara made a sound like breaking glass. Stop. Please. This is too much. But Taesung did not stop. You need to see this. You need to understand what humans are capable of when we fight. World War II appeared. The scale of destruction. The concentration camps. The atomic bombs. Velthar stood up, his crystalline legs trembling. I move that we pause this presentation. The committee needs time to discuss what we have learned. The vote was quick. All 12 scholars agreed. They could not watch anymore. As the committee filed out, Jinwoo heard them talking. Some were angry. Some were frightened. All were disturbed. Velthar approached Jinwoo privately. Jinwoo considered the question carefully. Humans today are different from humans of the past. We have learned. We have grown. But the capacity for violence still exists within us. Earth made sure of that. Then I must recommend to the Council that humanity be classified as a persistent, aggressive species, Velthar said sadly. Your expansion rights in the Confederacy will be limited. Your military will be monitored. I am sorry, but the evidence is clear. After Velthar left, He Jin turned to Jin Woo with tears in her eyes. Is this how they'll remember us? As monsters? Jin Woo put his hand on her shoulder. They only have part of the story. They see what we did, but they don't understand why. Not fully. Tae-sung grunted in agreement. They see the scars, but they don't see the disease that caused them. They don't understand Earth. Then we need to make them understand, Hee-jin said, wiping her eyes. We need to show them the comparison. Show them how their worlds were different. Jinwoo nodded slowly. Yes. We need an expert in comparative civilization studies. Someone who can put Earth in context. Tae-sung pulled out his communicator. I know someone. Professor Youngmi. She studies how environments shape species development. If anyone can explain Earth's uniqueness, it's her. 3 days passed. The committee met privately, debating humanity's classification. Jin Woo spent the time preparing a new presentation with Youngmi's help. This time, they would show the comparison. This time, the committee would see the truth. On the 4th day, Jin Woo requested a special session. The committee was reluctant, but agreed. They gathered in the chamber again, their mood dark and suspicious. Youngmi stood beside Jin Woo. She was 45 years old, a professor of xenobiology. Her eyes were sharp and intelligent. She had spent her career studying alien worlds and alien species. Honored scholars, Youngmi began. You have seen human history. Now let me show you human context. She activated a massive comparison display. On one side, Earth. On the other side, the homeworlds of every species in the Confederacy. 847 planets in total. The data appeared in columns. Climate stability, resource abundance, natural disaster frequency, predator presence, disease prevalence. The scholars stared at the numbers in growing shock. Earth, Youngmi said quietly, ranks in the bottom 3% of hospitable worlds in the known galaxy. By every measure, it should not have produced sentient life. It certainly should not have produced a spacefaring civilization. She highlighted specific comparisons. The Lumen homeworld has had the same average temperature for 3 million years. 0 major climate shifts. Earth's temperature varied by 15 degrees on average, with extreme swings of 30 degrees or more. More data appeared. The Tidecaller world has no land masses, no territorial conflicts, abundant food, distributed evenly by ocean currents. Earth had limited arable land, uneven resource distribution, and constant competition for territory. The Windborn evolved in stable atmospheric currents, with unlimited space and energy from their star. Earth's atmosphere was thin, dangerous, and humans needed solid ground to survive. Ground that was always limited, always contested. Planet after planet, the pattern was clear. The species of the Confederacy had evolved on paradise worlds. Stable, abundant, safe. Earth was none of those things. Velthar's 8 eyes blinked rapidly, processing the data. This cannot be correct. Life should not thrive under such conditions. Life didn't thrive, Youngmi corrected gently. Life survived. Barely. Humans nearly went extinct at least 6 times in their evolutionary history, but each time they adapted. They endured. Earth tried to kill them for 200,000 years, and humans refused to die. Nimara's shell had turned a deep blue, the color of deep thought in her species. You are saying that human violence was necessary for survival? I'm saying, Youngmi replied carefully, that Earth taught humans certain lessons. Fight or die. Adapt or perish. Be strong or be eliminated. These were not choices. These were the requirements for existence on that world. The chamber fell silent as the scholars absorbed this new understanding. Their judgment of humanity began to shift, just slightly, from condemnation to something else. Something closer to horrified comprehension. The special session continued into its 2nd hour. Young-mi stood at the center of the chamber, surrounded by data displays that told a story no one had expected. The committee members leaned forward in their seats, finally beginning to understand. "Let me show you something specific," Young-mi said, pulling up another comparison. "Every species here evolved with natural cooperation mechanisms. Your worlds encouraged working together. Let me demonstrate." 2. She selected the Tidecaller homeworld. "Your oceans distributed nutrients evenly through currents. No region starved, while another had plenty. Cooperation was the obvious strategy, because resources could be shared without anyone losing." One of the Tidecallers rippled in acknowledgement. "Yes. Sharing was always more efficient than hoarding. Now look at Earth," Young-mi continued. The display changed to show Earth's geography. Mountains separated groups for thousands of years. Deserts isolated civilizations. Oceans were uncrossable barriers until humans invented advanced boats. A village in one valley might have water and food. A village 10 miles away might be dying of drought, but they couldn't share because hostile terrain stood between them. She brought up more examples. The Windborn never competed for space. You had an entire atmosphere. Humans competed for every square meter of arable land. The Lumens never worried about energy. You absorb light directly. Humans had to hunt, gather, farm, all activities that put them in competition with each other and with dangerous animals. Velthar clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. So, human violence emerged from environmental pressure, not from inherent cruelty. Partially, Young-mi agreed. But there's more. Let me introduce another guest. The door opened. A man in a military uniform walked in. He was 38 years old, but looked older. Scars marked the left side of his face. His right arm was cybernetic, replaced after some terrible injury. This was Captain Dong-hyun. Heijin inhaled sharply. She recognized him from the news broadcasts. He was famous, a hero, and a survivor of humanity's darkest moment in space. Dong-hyun stood at attention before the committee. His voice was steady, but carried weight. "Honored scholars, I am here to speak about the Void Swarm incident." Several committee members shifted uncomfortably. They knew this story. 15 years ago, humanity had encountered another species in deep space. The Void Swarm. Insectoid creatures that attacked without warning, without communication, without mercy. They had destroyed 3 Confederacy outposts before anyone understood the threat. "The swarm attacked my ship," Dong-hyun continued. "We were a science vessel. Unarmed. They tore through our hull in minutes. I watched my crewmates die, watched them torn apart by creatures that saw us only as food or obstacles." Nimara chimed softly. "We know this story, Captain. The swarm were monsters. But what does this have to do with human history?" Dong-hyun's scarred face remained expressionless. "When the Confederacy learned of the swarm, they organized a defense. 300 ships from 20 different species. The military experts predicted it would take 5 to 10 years to eliminate the threat. That was the standard timeline for dealing with hostile species." He paused. "Humanity sent 50 ships. We eliminated the swarm in 18 months. The chamber went silent. 18 months, Velthar repeated. But how? The swarm were incredibly dangerous. They bred rapidly. They adapted to weapons quickly. They had no fear. Dong-hyun's expression hardened. They adapted quickly. Humans adapted faster. They bred rapidly. Humans killed faster. They had no fear. Humans had something stronger than fear. We had purpose. He pulled up tactical displays from the war. The committee watched human ships move in patterns that seemed reckless, aggressive, terrifyingly efficient. We didn't fight like the other Confederacy species, Dong-hyun explained. They fought defensively, protected their positions, minimized casualties, waited for the swarm to make mistakes. And humans? One of the lumens asked quietly. We hunted them, Donghyun said simply. We tracked their hive ships. We destroyed their breeding grounds. We pursued them into dangerous nebulas, where our own sensors barely worked. We didn't wait for them to come to us. We went to them, and we didn't stop until every single swarm ship was debris. Nimara's shell flickered with distress. You exterminated an entire species. Yes, Donghyun confirmed without hesitation. We did. And I would do it again. They wouldn't stop attacking. Couldn't be reasoned with. Couldn't be contained. So we removed the threat. Permanently. Taesung spoke up from the side of the chamber. This is what Earth taught us. When something tries to kill you, you have two options. Die, or make sure it can't kill you anymore. Humans spent 200,000 years learning that lesson. The committee looked disturbed. This was not the gentle, enlightened humanity they had hoped to find. This was something harder. Something forged in violence. Young Mi stepped forward again. But here's what the swarm incident really shows. Humans have the capacity for extreme violence. Yes, we know this. But notice what happened after the war ended. She pulled up new data. Humans didn't conquer the territory the swarm had occupied. Didn't claim it as spoils of war. Didn't demand payment from the species they had protected. They simply eliminated the threat and went home. Furthermore, Young Mi continued, human military psychologists treated every soldier who fought in that war. Required therapy. Required time to process what they had done. Because even though the killing was necessary, humans understood it was also traumatic. They didn't celebrate the extermination. They mourned the necessity of it. Hai-Jin found her voice again. Earth made us capable of terrible things. But we choose every day not to do those terrible things unless we must. That's the part your classification needs to understand. We have the capacity for violence, yes. But we also have the choice. And we choose peace when peace is possible. Velthar stood and walked to the center of the chamber. His crystalline legs clicked against the floor. He studied the data displays, the environmental comparisons, the history of human conflict, alongside the history of human restraint. Dr. Jin Woo, he said finally, I must ask you a question, and I need your honest answer. If the Confederacy were threatened by an existential danger, what would humans do? Jin Woo met his gaze steadily. We would fight. With everything we have, using every lesson Earth taught us. We would be terrifying and efficient and absolutely relentless. We would do whatever was necessary to survive and to protect those who couldn't protect themselves, even if it meant violence, even if it meant killing. Yes, Jinwoo said quietly. Earth taught us that survival sometimes requires hard choices. We don't glorify those choices. We don't enjoy them, but we make them when we must. One of the tide callers spoke, its voice bubbling through the translator. This frightens us. You must understand. Our species has never known such ruthlessness. The capacity for such violence seems dangerous. Dong Hyun turned to face the tide caller directly. It is dangerous. We are dangerous. But ask yourself this, when the swarm attacked your outposts, when your people were dying, who did you call for help? The tide caller rippled uncomfortably, but didn't answer. You called the Confederacy Defense Fleet, Dong Hyun continued, which included 50 human ships, and those dangerous, violent humans saved your people. We used our capacity for violence to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. That's the choice we make. That's who we choose to be. Young Mi added more data to the displays. Since joining the Confederacy 200 years ago, humans have participated in 14 rescue operations for failing colonies. Shared agricultural technology freely with 37 species. Contributed 34% of all medical advances in Confederacy research. Taught survival techniques that saved thousands of lives during the Kepler station disaster. She let that sink in. Yes, Earth made us hard. Made us capable of violence. But it also made us survivors. And survivors know the value of life because we know how easily it can be lost. We fight to protect life, not to destroy it. The chamber fell silent again. The scholars processed this avalanche of information. Human history suddenly looked different in this new light. Still violent. Still disturbing. But understandable. Contextual. A species shaped by a hostile world. Doing what they had to do to survive. And then choosing to use that hardness to help others, rather than harm them. Velthar finally spoke. I need to consult with the committee privately. We will adjourn for 3 days. Dr. Jinwoo, please prepare a final summary of your presentation. Include the environmental data, the historical timeline, and the modern context. We will present our findings to the full Galactic Council at the end of the week. As the committee filed out, Jinwoo noticed that they looked different now. Less afraid. Less judgmental. More thoughtful. Nimara paused at the door. Her crystalline shell had changed to a soft purple, the color of respect in her species. Dr. Jinwoo, she chimed. I must apologize. I judged your species without understanding. That was wrong of me. Jinwoo bowed slightly. No apology needed, honored scholar. You reacted with the values your world taught you, just as humans reacted with the values Earth taught us. The difference was the teacher, not the student. After everyone left, the 5 humans remained in the chamber. Jinwoo, Haijin, Taesung, Youngmi, and Donghyun. They looked at each other, exhausted, but cautiously hopeful. Do you think they'll understand? Haijin asked. Really understand? Taesung grunted. They're starting to. That's more than we had 3 days ago. Youngmi nodded. The data speaks for itself. Earth was objectively hostile. Human development was objectively shaped by that hostility. They can't deny the facts. Donghyun looked at the displays showing Earth, that beautiful blue and green marble that had tried so hard to kill its children. Whatever they decide, at least they know the truth now. We're not monsters. We're survivors. There's a difference. Jinwoo stood in the center of the chamber, looking at the data that represented his entire species' journey. From primitive hunters running from predators to spacefaring people helping other species survive their own challenges. 3 more days, he said quietly. Then the Galactic Council decides what humanity really is. Not what we think we are, not what we hope to be, but what our history proves we have become. The question hung in the air. Had humanity overcome Earth's brutal lessons enough to be trusted? Or would they forever be defined by the violence that had kept them alive? The answer would come soon. The Galactic Council chamber was enormous. It had to be, to hold representatives from 847 different species. The chamber was circular, with tiers rising up like an ancient amphitheater. Each species had their own section, designed for their specific needs. Water tanks for aquatic beings, low-gravity platforms for the floating species, crystalline pillars for beings made of living light. At the center stood a raised platform where speakers addressed the council. Today, that platform held the Historical Classification Committee and the humans who had presented Earth's story. Jinwoo felt small standing there, looking up at thousands of alien faces. Some watched with curiosity, others with suspicion, many with fear. At the highest tier sat Chancellor Remoth, leader of the Galactic Council. She was a luminar, an ancient being made of living crystal that pulsed with soft golden light. She had served the Council for 400 years. She had seen species rise and fall. She had made decisions that shaped galactic civilization. Now she would decide humanity's fate. Velthar stepped forward to present the committee's findings. His 8 eyes scanned the assembly before he spoke. Honored Council, he began. We have completed our review of human history. What we found defies our standard classification system. Humanity cannot be categorized as we have categorized other species. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Representatives leaned forward, interested. Velthar continued. Human history contains levels of conflict unprecedented in our records. Wars numbered in the thousands. Deaths numbered in the hundreds of millions. Technologies developed specifically for killing. Entire civilizations destroyed by their own hand. The murmurs grew louder. Some species made sounds of disgust, others of fear. However, Velthar said, and the chamber quieted. We have also examined the context of this development, the environmental conditions that shaped humanity, and we have concluded that human violence was not a choice, but a requirement for survival on one of the most hostile worlds in known space. He activated displays that showed Earth alongside paradise worlds of the Confederacy. The comparison was stark, brutal, undeniable. Earth tried to kill humanity for 200,000 years, Velthar said quietly. And humanity refused to die. That refusal required hardness, required violence, required capabilities that disturb us. But those capabilities were not developed from cruelty. They were developed from desperation. Nimara stepped forward next. Her crystalline shell glowed with purple light, the color of changed opinion. I initially recommended that humanity be classified as a persistent, aggressive species. She admitted. I was wrong. After studying the comparative data, I now understand that human aggression is contextual, not inherent. When given peace, humans choose peace. When given cooperation, humans cooperate. But when threatened with extinction, humans become something terrifying. And that duality is what makes them unique. Several council members shifted uncomfortably. A representative from the peaceful consortium stood a being, made of flowing water, held in a force field. Unique, perhaps, the consortium representative said, but also dangerous. Should we not limit a species capable of such violence? For the safety of all? Before the committee could respond, Ambassador Subin stepped forward. She was 56 years old, humanity's representative to the Council for 15 years. She had fought hard for humanity's reputation. Today might be her most important speech. Honored Council, Subin said, her voice carrying through the chamber. You fear what humans might do. I understand. Our history is violent. Our capacity for destruction is real. But I ask you to consider not just what we have done, but what we have chosen not to do. She activated a new display. Humans developed nuclear weapons in 1945. Weapons capable of destroying cities in seconds. We used them twice in war. 1845. And then, despite having thousands of these weapons, despite global conflicts that lasted decades, we never used them again. We chose restraint. We developed biological weapons, Subin continued. Diseases that could kill millions. We banned them, destroyed our stockpiles, chose to never use them, even when we were at war. We developed artificial intelligence that could make decisions faster than any human. We put restrictions on it, built-in safeguards, chose to keep ultimate control in human hands, even though AI might be more efficient. She looked up at the tiers of alien representatives. Earth made us capable of terrible things. But we choose, every single day, not to do those terrible things, unless we absolutely must. That choice matters. That restraint matters. Judge us not just by our capacity for violence, but by our commitment to peace. When peace is possible, a representative from the Harmony Collective stood. This was a species of telepathically linked beings who shared thoughts and emotions. Beautiful words, Ambassador. But words are easy. Actions are what matter. Can you show us actions that prove human restraint? Jinwoo stepped forward. Yes. Let me show you what humanity has done since joining the Confederacy. He pulled up records that Heejin and Youngmi had compiled over the past 3 days. A comprehensive list of human contributions to galactic society. 14 failed colonies rescued by human emergency response teams. Jinwoo read. The colony on Theta 7 was dying of crop failure. Human agricultural specialists went there and taught them techniques developed on Earth for hostile environments. The mining disaster on Kepler Station, Youngmi added, stepping forward. 347 beings trapped underground. Confederacy rescue teams said it would take weeks to reach them. Humans went in using techniques developed from coal mining disasters on Earth. Everyone was rescued within 4 days. Medical advances, Hyejin said, her voice stronger now. Human doctors studying their own history of plagues and pandemics developed new protocols for disease containment. Those protocols saved thousands of lives during the Crimson Fever outbreak on the Tidecaller homeworld. Donghyun stepped forward last. His military uniform stood out among the civilians. The Void Swarm incident. Yes, humans exterminated them. Violently. Efficiently. But when the war ended, we didn't continue. Didn't seek out other species to conquer. We went home. Treated our soldiers for trauma. And then volunteered to train Confederacy Defense Forces in survival tactics so other species could defend themselves without needing human intervention. The evidence piled up. Humanity's 200 years in space had been marked not by conquest or domination, but by assistance and cooperation. Yes, they were capable of extreme violence, but they used that capability only when necessary, and always in defense of life. Chancellor Remoth finally spoke. Her voice was ancient and deep, resonating through the chamber. I have listened to these arguments. I have reviewed the data. I have consulted with species far older than humanity, who remember when my own people were young and foolish. She paused, and the entire chamber held its breath. Earth was a forge, Remoth continued. A terrible, merciless forge that shaped humanity through suffering. Other species were fortunate. We grew in gardens. We evolved in peace. We never knew the desperate struggle for survival that defined the human experience. But the galaxy is not a garden, Remoth said. The galaxy contains threats. The Void Swarm was not the first hostile species, and it will not be the last. Disasters happen, colonies fail, diseases emerge, and when these crises come, we need species who know how to survive against impossible odds. Jinwoo felt hope rising in his chest. Therefore, Remoth declared, I propose a new classification for humanity. Not persistent aggressive species. Not peaceful development, but something new. Something that acknowledges both their capacity and their choice. The chamber fell silent. I propose humanity be classified as Warning Class Record. Survival Forged Civilization. Their history will be mandatory study for all Confederacy crisis response teams. Their methods will be analyzed. Their restraint will be noted. And their assistance will be welcomed. Velthar stepped forward. I support this classification, but I recommend one addition. Humans should be formally designated as crisis specialists within the Confederacy Emergency Response Framework. When disaster strikes, when normal methods fail, we call the humans, because they know how to survive what should not be survivable. Nimara chimed her agreement. I support this as well. But I add one requirement. Human expansion will be monitored. Not restricted, but observed, to ensure that Earth's brutal lessons do not overtake the peaceful choices humans have made since leaving their homeworld. A vote was called. The results appeared on displays throughout the chamber. 683 votes in favor. 142 opposed. 22 abstentions. The classification was approved. Jinwoo felt Heejin grab his hand, squeezing tight. Tears ran down her face. Taesung nodded approvingly. Youngmi smiled. Donghyun stood at attention, proud and relieved. Subin approached the platform where Chancellor Remoth sat. Thank you, honored Chancellor. Humanity will honor this trust. We will use our hard-won knowledge to help, not harm. Remoth pulsed with warm golden light. I know you will, Ambassador, because that is the choice you have already made. Again and again. That consistency is why we trust you. As the council session ended, representatives from various species approached the humans. Some offered congratulations. Others asked questions about human survival techniques. A few admitted they still feared humanity, but respected the classification decision. One representative, from a species called the Gentle Walkers, approached Jinwoo directly. Dr. Jinwoo, my homeworld is experiencing climate instability. Our scientists don't know how to help our people adapt. Could you teach us? Jinwoo bowed respectfully. Of course. Humans have extensive experience with climate change. We would be honored to share what we learned. Send your scientists to Earth. We will show them everything. More requests came. A species dealing with crop failures. Another facing geological instability. A third worried about asteroid impacts. Problem after problem that humans had faced and solved on Earth. The galaxy was beginning to understand. Humanity's violent history was not a stain to be ashamed of. It was a resource, a library of hard-won knowledge about surviving in a hostile universe. As the chamber emptied, Velthar approached Jinwoo privately. I must apologize, he said quietly. I judged your species harshly. I compared you to species from garden worlds and found you wanting. I did not understand that different teachers produce different students. Are off. Jinwoo placed a hand on one of Velthar's crystalline legs. You did exactly what you should have done. You looked at the evidence. You asked hard questions. You pushed us to explain ourselves. That was your job. And in doing it well, you helped the council see the truth. Velthar's 8 eyes blinked in what might have been gratitude. Will you continue working at the Eternal Library? Really, Fickett? Yes, Jinwoo said. Human history is now classified as required study. Someone needs to help others understand it properly. To see both the darkness and the light. To learn the lessons without learning the wrong lessons. I would be honored to work alongside you, Velthar said. An unlikely friendship, Jinwoo thought. A human shaped by a brutal world and an alien from a peaceful one, working together to help the galaxy understand both. Perhaps that was exactly what the galaxy needed. 6 months had passed since the Council's declaration. The Eternal Library felt different now. The corridors that once held only the quiet whisper of scholars now buzzed with activity. Students from dozens of species came to study human history. To learn from Earth's brutal lessons, Jinwoo walked through the human history section, watching young beings from across the galaxy study the displays. A Windborn student examined records of human agricultural development. A Tidecaller analyzed disaster response protocols. 2 lumens worked together, studying human medical advances born from centuries of fighting diseases. Heijin stood near the central archive, helping a group of students understand the context of World War II. Jinwoo noticed how she had changed. 6 months ago, she had been enthusiastic but naive. Now she spoke with authority and understanding. She didn't hide humanity's darkness, but she also didn't apologize for it. She simply explained it. Yes, it was horrible, Heijin was saying to a crystalline student. Millions died. Cities burned. Humans did terrible things to each other. But understand the context. Understand the scarcity. Understand the fear. Understand the desperation. And then understand that humans learned from this. They built institutions specifically to prevent it from happening again. The United Nations. The Geneva Conventions. International cooperation frameworks. Humans looked at their worst moment and said, never again. That matters. The student pulsed with understanding. So the violence taught them the value of peace? Exactly, Heijin confirmed. Earth taught humans how to fight. But humans taught themselves why fighting should be the last resort. Not the first, Jinwoo smiled. His student had become a teacher. That was good. The galaxy needed people who understood both the data and the humanity behind it. Velthar appeared beside Jinwoo. his crystalline legs clicking softly on the metal floor. Your intern has become quite skilled at explaining human history. She understands now, Jinwoo said. Both the pride and the shame. Both the capability and the choice. That balance is important. I have been studying human philosophy, Velthar admitted. My species never needed hope because we never faced true despair. We evolved in abundance. But humans face despair constantly and still chose to keep trying. That determination is remarkable. Thanks for watching, Jinwoo nodded. Earth gave us despair. We gave ourselves hope. That was our choice. The only choice we could make, and still remain human. They walked together to Jinwoo's office. The walls were covered with requests from various species. Colonies, seeking advice on disaster preparedness. Governments wanting to learn human crisis management techniques. Research institutions requesting human experts to help solve seemingly impossible problems. We receive 100 new requests per day, Jinwoo said, gesturing at the displays. Every species that joins the Confederacy now studies human history as part of their orientation. They learn what happens when a species refuses to give up. No matter how hard the universe tries to kill them. Velthar studied the requests. This one interests me. The Peaceful Consortium is asking for human assistance with their defense grid. They have never needed military capability before. But recent threats have made them reconsider. Yes, Jinwoo confirmed. Humans are helping them design defensive systems. Not weapons of conquest, but tools of protection. Teaching them the difference between aggression and defense. That distinction is crucial. Across the galaxy, in the Confederacy Military Academy, Tae-sung stood before a classroom of young cadets from 24 different species. His cane rested against the podium. His scarred face was stern but not unkind. Survival warfare, Tae-sung began, is different from conquest warfare. Conquest is about taking. Survival is about enduring. Earth taught humans the second kind. Today, I teach you. A cadet from the gentle walkers species raised a tentacle. But sir, our species has never fought a war. We have no instinct for violence. How can we learn what humans learned from centuries of conflict? Tae-sung nodded. Good question. You can't learn it the way humans did. Earth spent 200,000 years teaching us through suffering. We don't have that time. And I wouldn't wish that teacher on anyone. So instead, you learn from human experience. We suffered, so you don't have to. We made the mistakes, so you can avoid them. That's the point of studying history. He pulled up tactical displays from various human conflicts. Look at these battles. See the patterns? Humans learned to adapt quickly, to use terrain, to anticipate enemy movements, to survive against superior forces through cunning and determination. These are not instincts you were born with, but they are skills you can learn. Another cadet, this one a windborn, chimed a question. But doesn't learning violence corrupt peaceful species? Will we become like humans? Hardened? Scarred? Tae-sung's expression softened slightly. No, you won't become like us. You can't. Your worlds didn't forge you the way Earth forged humanity. You're learning skills, not transforming your nature. And that's good. The galaxy needs peaceful species. But peaceful species also need to know how to defend themselves. That's what I teach. Defense. Survival. Not aggression. At another station, Dong-hyun trained a mixed group of Confederacy officers in rapid response tactics. His cybernetic arm moved smoothly as he demonstrated equipment handling. Speed matters in crisis situations, he explained. Every second counts. Humans learned this through disasters, earthquakes, floods, building collapses. When people are trapped, dying, you don't have time for perfect planning. You need fast action with acceptable risk. He showed them recordings from the Kepler station rescue. Human teams moving quickly through unstable tunnels, making decisions in seconds that other species would debate for hours. Notice how they assess and act almost simultaneously? Dong-hyun pointed out. That's not recklessness. That's trained judgment. They know the risks. They accept them. They move forward anyway. Because waiting means more people die. A tide-caller officer rippled uncertainly. But what if they make wrong decisions? What if the risk is too high? Then people die. Dong-hyun said bluntly. That's the reality of crisis response. Sometimes, there are no good options. Only bad options, and worse options. Humans are comfortable making those choices because Earth forced us to make them for thousands of generations. You need to develop that same comfort, or you'll freeze when action is needed. The training continued. Day after day, humans teaching other species the hard lessons Earth had beaten into them. Not teaching violence for its own sake, but teaching survival when survival seemed impossible. Back on Earth, Young-mi gave a lecture to a packed auditorium of human students. Her topic: Our responsibility as survivors. We know things other species don't, Young-mi said. We know how to endure what shouldn't be endurable. We know how to survive what should be unsurvivable. That knowledge is a gift and a burden. She pulled up the comparative planetary data that had convinced the Galactic Council. Earth was harder than almost any world in the galaxy. It made us harder in response. But now, we live among species from gentle worlds. Species that never needed hardness. What do we do with the strength Earth gave us? A student raised their hand. We protect them? Use our strength to defend those who can't defend themselves? Yes. Young-mi agreed. But also, we teach them. Share what we know. Help them develop their own capabilities. We don't want to create dependent species who always need human protection. We want to empower them to protect themselves. Another student spoke up. But aren't we also learning from them? From peaceful species? Young-mi smiled. Absolutely. We're learning cooperation techniques humans never developed because we were too busy competing for scarce resources. We're learning conflict resolution methods that don't involve violence. We're learning that our way, Earth's way, isn't the only way. It was necessary for us, but it's not necessary for everyone. She showed images of human children playing with alien children in mixed-species schools. Humans teaching survival skills. Aliens teaching cooperation and shared decision-making. This is the future, Young-mi said. Not humans, conquering the galaxy with the violence Earth taught us, but humans contributing what we learned while also learning from others. We are our scars, yes, but we don't have to let those scars define us completely. We can grow beyond them. At the Galactic Council chambers, Ambassador Su-bin reviewed the latest reports. 6 months of human integration into the Confederacy Crisis Response Framework. The results were remarkable. Response times to emergencies had improved by 40%. Survival rates in disasters had increased by 32%. Training protocols developed by human experts were now standard across Confederacy emergency services. But the most interesting development was the cultural exchange. Species that had initially feared humans now requested human teachers, human advisors, human friends. They were learning that humans were more than their violent history. They were survivors who chose to help others survive. Subin's communicator chimed. Another request. A frontier colony facing environmental collapse. They specifically requested human assistance. She approved it immediately and forwarded the request to the appropriate human response team. This was the new normal. Humans as the galaxy's crisis specialists. The ones you called when normal solutions failed. The ones who knew how to survive the unsurvivable. In his quarters aboard the Eternal Library, Jinwoo worked late into the night on his book. He had titled it, What Death Worlds Teach, Lessons from Earth. It was a comprehensive study, comparing Earth to other hostile worlds, and analyzing what made humans unique. Ye Jin entered quietly, carrying 2 cups of tea. You should rest, teacher. You've been writing for 14 hours. Jinwoo accepted the tea gratefully. I'm almost finished with this chapter. It's about human adaptability. How Earth's constant changes forced humans to develop flexible thinking. Read it to me? Heejin asked, sitting down. Jinwoo read from his manuscript. Humans are not the strongest species. They are not the fastest, the smartest, or the most physically capable. But humans are the most adaptable. Earth changed constantly. So humans learned to change with it. This adaptability is perhaps Earth's greatest gift to humanity. It allows humans to thrive in environments that would kill most other species. It allows them to solve problems that seem impossible. It allows them to survive against overwhelming odds. Heejin smiled. That's good. That's true. We adapt. It's what we do best. Yes, Jinwoo agreed. And now, we teach others to adapt too. To see challenges not as insurmountable obstacles, but as problems waiting for creative solutions. That's the real legacy of Earth. Not violence. Adaptability. 50 years passed. Jinwoo was gone now, his book a standard text in schools across the galaxy. Hai Jin had taken his place as head of human history studies at the Eternal Library. Velthar still worked beside her, now her closest friend and colleague. Tae Sung had passed too, but his training methods lived on through thousands of students who carried forward his lessons. Dong Hyun commanded the Confederacy Rapid Response Fleet, saving lives across the galaxy. Youngmi's exchange program had grown into a galactic institution. Humans and aliens learning from each other, sharing knowledge, building bridges between violent pasts and peaceful futures. And then the crisis came. The sensors detected them first. Ships entering the galaxy from beyond the rim. Thousands of ships. Tens of thousands. An extragalactic invasion force, unlike anything the Confederacy had ever seen. The aliens called themselves the Devourers. They consumed entire planets, stripped them of resources, left nothing but dead rock behind. The Confederacy assembled its defense forces. Every species contributed ships, soldiers, resources, but as the Devourers swept inward, destroying colony after colony, even the combined might of 800 species seemed insufficient. The battles were brutal. The Devourers were technologically advanced and absolutely ruthless. They had conquered dozens of galaxies before arriving at the Confederacy's doorstep. Standard defensive tactics failed. The Devourers adapted too quickly. Confederacy forces suffered massive casualties. Panic spread through the council chambers. Then Heijin, now an old woman, stood before the council and spoke words that changed everything. The Devourers are doing to the Confederacy what Earth did to humans for 200,000 years. They're teaching us through suffering, through desperation, through the threat of extinction, and we need to respond the way humans learned to respond. She pulled up human tactical doctrine. Survival warfare, asymmetric tactics, rapid adaptation, refusing to surrender no matter the odds. We don't fight to win, Heejin said. We fight to survive. And if we survive long enough, we find a way to win. That's what Earth taught humanity. Now humanity teaches the Confederacy. The combined fleets reorganized under human strategic command. They stopped fighting defensively and started fighting like humans fought. Aggressively, creatively, relentlessly. They used tactics that seemed reckless but worked. They adapted faster than the Devourers expected. They refused to break even when breaking seemed inevitable. The war lasted 3 years. Thousands died. But slowly, impossibly, the Confederacy pushed the Devourers back. Not through superior technology, not through overwhelming force, but through sheer determination not to be exterminated. When the last Devourer ship retreated back beyond the galactic rim, the Confederacy celebrated. They had survived, and they knew exactly who had taught them how. The warning in human history had become a promise. Humans would not break. and they would teach others not to break either. Earth's brutal lessons had saved the galaxy, not through violence for its own sake, but through the strength to survive anything, through the refusal to give up, through the adaptability born from 200,000 years of fighting a world that tried to kill them. That was humanity's true legacy. Not conquest, not domination, but survival, and the willingness to share that survival with all who needed it. The warning became wisdom. The scars became strength, and the children of Earth became the guardians of a galaxy that had finally learned what death worlds teach. We don't break.